If you're like me, winter camping doesn't stop when the snow starts falling. Although, especially -30, things can get quite chilly. Well, my tent does come with a winter insulation kit that helps cool the walls and keep a little bit more temperature inside the tent. We do lose quite a bit of heat from the floor that we're laying on. And that's why today we're going to be spending about $150 in insulating the floor of my tent on my rooftop tent. We're going to be adding about 7.5 additional R value to the existing aluminum setup, which should give us a nice warm tent even down to -30. And don't forget to go ahead and subscribe because we'll be testing this as soon as temperatures start to drop. And how exactly are we going to be doing this? Well, as you can see, I got some supplies behind us, and well, a combination of all this should give us the most effective and well finished piece of insulation for our rooftop tent. So what I'm going to do is walk you through all of this, and then we're going to get to installing it well in my tent. As I said, I do have a hard shell rooftop tent, so making sure that this is nice and thin is our most critical step. We have about 4 inches when the shell is shut. So that's all we get to, well, insulate our tent. So we had to be pretty particular with what we're choosing. So on our bottom most layer, we're going to be using this stuff. This is called Reflectix, and I actually used it on my soft shell tent back when I insulated it. As I said, I've been doing a bit of research and diving into what works best. And while I did find that Reflectix worked really well on my rooftop tent, I was actually pretty impressed. It's honestly not the best option. It doesn't have a great R value. It's really 1.1 when you have stuff up against it. What it really does shine is when there's air pockets beside them. Unfortunately, because it's a floor, we're not going to really have air pockets. So this is going to be kind of the thermal barrier and well, the layer between the aluminum and all of our insulation. My hope is because, well, all our insulation is air and that aluminum is air, that it has some radiant benefits. It's also just going to be a nice moisture layer to kind of protect everything. How we're going to fasten all of this is actually kind of important because I want all of this to be removable so we can get the bare aluminum when we need it. So what I'm going to be using is a combination of, well, some Velcros or some hook and loop kind of straps to put it all down, and then between the layers, we're going to be using some carpet tape. This carpet tape should be able to kind of combine all the layers and make sure that nothing moves. We also got some reflective tape that we'll be using to kind of seal up the seams because every little air gap, you're going to have drafts. With the Reflectix on the bottom, next we're going to be using this XPS foam. I went with a 1/2 inch, which should give us an R value of about 3. It's great insulation for houses, and well, I think it should be pretty good insulation for the floor as well. The reason I went with a 1/2 inch, again, size. We don't want to drop down to a full inch. It would just be way too much because we have that 4 inches, and well, we have this factory mattress that is going to take up a little bit of room. So this is our second layer. Our third layer is EVA foam. You're going to probably notice these. You've probably seen these a ton, these little squares. And while EVA foam is used for a lot of different stuff, and unfortunately, if you try to buy a roll of it, it's just really expensive, especially if you're going to go, again, with a 1/2 inch. So we're going to be using this 1/2 inch foam mat, 100% EVA, that is way cheaper than buying a roll of EVA. Again, we're probably going to be using some tape to make sure we can seal and no air gets through here, but this is going to kind of sit like this as a sandwich and be all combined. On top of that, we have what is considered an anti-condensation mat for the factory tent insulation, and it's like a nice about 1/8 inch wool layer that is going to sit between, well, our EVA mat and our mattress. Our mattress is about 1.5 inches thick, so it does give us, again, doing the math, we have about 5 inches of insulation material and about 4 inches of the tent when it's closed. That said, mattress can really squeeze down, and this EVA foam can really squeeze down. This EVA foam is, the reason it's up here is it should give me another little layer of essentially comfort because this foam is pretty soft. So once we go with a harder foam, it's gonna be a little more dense. I can still squish down in it and just give me that little bit of extra comfort for camping, especially when we're on the road for multiple days. So that is exactly what we're using. So let's go ahead and we'll start installing it all. And as mentioned, Reflectix is going to be our first layer on here. Mostly because, as I said, it's a good radiant layer. So where we're not going to get all that insulation, where we're not going to be sleeping like in these corners and stuff, what I can do is I can cut the Reflectix so it covers this whole base perfectly. And then even though there might not be insulation, it is a good radiant insulation. So it will help kind of reflect that heat energy you have in the tent back into the tent, rather than trying to heat up the actual metal base or the aluminum base. That said, you do gotta cut and measure it to the same size. So there is a couple options. One thing is I do have this kind of wool layer that was cut and measured relatively the same height as all of this. There is one issue. They actually left it a little bit wider. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna base the Reflectix off of this. I'm gonna cut a Reflectix layer the exact same size as this, if not just a little bit bigger. And then I'm gonna put it down and just trace out the spots that I do gotta cut, and then I'll cut those out. So we have kind of a good starting point with this anti-condensation mat. If you don't have something like this, you could actually just use the mattress that came in the tent and use that to kind of cut those layers out, and then get that layer on there and then do your fine trimming. Now with our Reflectix pretty much cut to size, you can tell we do have some places where it is conflicting. So like on the struts here and the gas struts, but other than that, it's almost a perfect fit. So what we got to do is we got to go ahead, we'll line it up against that wall and then cut into the gas strut areas and this area. And then we'll be able to kind of do this. But on this side doesn't have any conflict. So it should be just a nice, easy rectangle. And then we can go work on the second layer. And well, there we go. We have both layers of Reflectix ready to go. I left a little bit of a gap here. It's not going to be the best, but what I'll do is I'll probably use some shiny tape, because at the end of the day, I do want it to fold up. And it being the outer layer, I probably actually can't even use Reflectix tape, because when it folds up, it's going to have a fairly large gap, so it has to kind of separate, because it's going to be like the outermost layer. That said, with this done, that means we can go on to the XPS foam now and figure out how we're going to cut that, because that's going to be a little more of a challenge. And after some debating and folding up the tent to see how the strut bar kind of functions, I think what I'm going to do is, because we can always cut smaller, but we can never make it bigger, is we're going to use our Reflectix as kind of our guide and cut our XPS and our EVA based off of this. I know because the arms fold in, my concern is that they're going to rest on that foam. It's actually not be able to have the tent shut completely without putting too much pressure on it. So that's kind of my concern. As I said, we can always cut it if we need to and essentially make the bigger main base just the width of the narrower piece, and that will allow the arms to fold in. So that is kind of the plan here, is we're just going to take this, cut out this, do what we have to do to make it the right size, and then put it all together at once. After 4 hours of cutting, we have all of our layers here ready to go. They're not all attached because, as I said, I'm not sure if this will all fit when the tent folds up. Mathematically, we've got about an inch of squish we need to deal with, and I think the mattress and, well, this EVA foam should handle that. My other concern is the bars on the side, on the bigger piece, they'll actually hit and they won't fold down all the way. So we got a couple issues to iron out when we were putting this all in. So that's why none of it's attached yet. And well, none of it's really fully assembled. But we do have our layers. So we have our Reflectix, then we have our foam here. with our seals because we had to cut pieces, and then our foam. I am gonna aluminum foil this part, but we are not going to do that till it's all ready to go. And then eventually what will happen is, again, I'm not 100% sure on this one, is we might aluminum foil the 3 sandwich layer here. So the Reflectix, this guy, and this guy all together. So we have essentially like a big sandwich of insulation. That said, when you're cutting this stuff, the EVA foam works great with scissors. This pink stuff is actually kind of hard to cut. It says easy to cut, but it is not. My best way is to take a razor blade, get it at like a 60-degree angle, make sure the blade's really far out, and just drag it along. I find that's the best way to cut it. If you use a saw, which I was using, it cuts a million different pieces. And if you use a razor blade and kind of saw at it, it chips it off. So that's kind of the strategy for cutting this all. But we have all our shapes in. So what I'm going to do is take this sandwich of stuff and go toss it up in the tent, and then we're going to see if it really closes. I mean, that's definitely an upgrade just in general for like needling and stuff compared to the old mattress where you would just hit the floor. That said, we are right at this little nub here, or this bolt. So we are definitely kind of, I think, good for when this folds down and sits on the fabric. It should all close up. It's just, we have a mattress that goes on top of all of this. So we'll just have to see. That means that we got to go ahead and get this side on and, well, get it all together. And the whole thing is on here, and as you can tell, it is right up against what I'm thinking the limits might be. We're just gonna have to try it and test it out, but it's definitely well insulated. I can tell you, I haven't seen really any rooftop tent that's this well insulated on the floor. I'm almost tempted to toss some Reflectix on the roof when we're doing some extreme winter camping to kind of radiate that heat back in. Because I can just cut a big piece, put it up here, and then when I put the winter insulation kit, it can sit on top, and then same with that back. We'll just have to see about doing that later in the future. Or maybe I'll just do it, and then you'll just have to see the effectiveness, because that's just cutting a giant piece of Reflectix and putting it on that back wall and putting it up here. That said, we're done the hard part of cutting this all out. Now it's time to test it and see how it works. So I'm going to go ahead, get the mattress in here, and well, the anti-condensation layer that goes under the mattress, and we're gonna just have to test it out and see how it closes. We got the mattress in here, and it actually is quite a bit more comfortable because we have that foam layer on the bottom. That said, I am noticing some issues that I think we'll run into when we try to close it. First off, we can see the line right here where this bar closes into the mattress. If it's already like kind of putting pressure on it when there's nothing in here, what is it going to do when there's layers of foam? Are we going to have to cut it? We will have to see. The other issue is I can't see the bottom bracket on the strut there. So that is also going to be an issue when it comes to closing it, because I have a feeling those struts are going to be resting on our insulation, which again, might be an easy thing to solve. We might just be able to cut that guy out. And then finally, you can look at these pockets here. So they are sitting like halfway buried. Once we lift it up, you can see that about half of it's already buried. So when we go ahead and close it, we might not have enough room. Well, that isn't instilling a lot of confidence right now. It's like got that much before we can even close it. It's close, but I don't think it's close enough. What I'm seeing is these arms right here are squishing the mattress down like completely, and it's hitting the EVA foam and insulation, which as long as it's like horizontal, it's fine. But because there is more foam on the inside here, what it's doing is squishing down and resting at like probably a 10-degree angle. When I sit on it, it does compress a little bit. That's the only hope there, is that we got enough, and I'm looking here, we're like probably an inch too tall. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give it a go, because if you watch my last couple of videos where we do it working in the winter, we do put a mattress or just a sleeping pad and a blanket down here, and it sits a little bit lower than this, but not much. So there is a chance that we can make this work. Eventually I'll have something on the rack or on the roof of this tent, so it'll be hard or easier to close. So as long as I do it, which you typically do nowadays, is just get up here and close it from up here, because, well, it's actually a pretty nice view. We can see how it works. So let's go ahead and give her a go. Yeah, that ain't happening. It is definitely too tight. So we have a couple options. We can first cut down on the sides to see if we can narrow it and get it to fit so those arms can rest all the way down and it can squish down. That is what I think I'm going to try. I think that's our limiting factor right now, is to see if we can't make where the arms go in much larger groove so that it actually squishes down and gives us enough room to close it. Because, yeah, right now, that's as far as it's going. Check it out. We got it closed with all of our insulation in it, even the stuff I removed. So we're actually good to go. I'll show you exactly what I did. It's a little bit of trickery with just moving essentially the mattress. The mattress just needs to be pushed up, and then everything else closes because we have more room on the top of this. So the mattress is in between the top of this and actually the top of the floor. So it gives us a little more padding. And actually, I think we might be able to fit, maybe not our sleeping bag, but we should be able to fit at least the factory winter insulation kit. Probably with a little bit more of a struggle up here. But like right now, I've had it worse than this before. I've had it like where I can't get these latches on and I have to kind of sit on it when I had my blanket for insulation and stuff. So this is a much smoother way to do it for sure. And because I want the insulation panels to essentially act as one, what we're going to be using is some outdoor carpet tape. And we're going to tape in the Reflectix to this, and then obviously the foam to the other side, and then we'll have one solid kind of insulation panel. And then from there, we're going to just use this heavy-duty hook and loop and put it kind of around the perimeter so that when it sets down, it stays. Because if you don't do this, especially with the hook and loop, what is going to happen when you open and close it, you're going to have the panels fall through the cracks, and it's really, really annoying. I had that on my soft shell for a little bit before I went ahead and taped it up. But as I said, I want them to be one insulation panel, and I want them to be removable. So hook and loop to the tent, and then together we're using carpet tape. And well, I do have our panels taped together mostly. This big one, because it's the backside, I think I'm gonna have to tape it together because usually I fold it to get it in and out. And when it's not folded, it's almost impossible to get in and out. So what I am going to try to do is I'm going to try to wiggle it in there. I made it so it theoretically should flex and fold a little bit. And then we'll finalize the taping of the different layers together. But as you can tell, it should be pretty insulative. That said, before we go ahead and do that, we got to go ahead and put our hook and loop system. What I'm going to do is just probably do the corners, probably corner here, corner here, corner here, corner here, and corner here. And then do the same thing on the inside so that when we get it all in there, we can push it down and tape everything together and then really have a well-insulated tent. And well, there we go. We have our insulation, well, not permanently installed, but installed into the point where it's now Velcro down. So I should actually push down on these. Here we go. I heard some clicking. So we essentially are fully insulated now. What I'll do is I'm going to show you my method for closing this, because right now I could close this no problem, actually. It's kind of cool the way I figured it out, but it also gives you this nice layer between, well, you and the hard floor. Like, used to be when the mattress wasn't here, it was so uncomfortable, like, because it's aluminum, right? You can't really kneel on aluminum, but now we have a place to move around and kind of clean it up. Before we put the mattress in, we can hide the mattress like that, actually, which is really cool. So you could put stuff here to dry, have the diesel heater, and then fold down your mattress when you're ready to sleep. It opens up a lot more opportunity, especially in those winter or just cold months in general. And you can see what's going on here. So essentially the mattress is up against the wall here so that it essentially kind of is pushed out of the way. Again, it's actually really good for cleaning or even just a little bit of storage if you don't want to have the mattress, get the mattress dirty, change your clothes, whatever. You have this like kind of hard subfloor, which is actually, I think, a really good idea. It worked out better than expected. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get all of it in. That said, when we close it, we do have that little bit of a problem where we have to not leave it completely like this. We put this layer down and we put this layer up. So essentially, we have it kind of pushed back here and you get a little cushion here. Again, maybe not such a bad idea. What I'm going to do is front runner, make some really nice tarp straps or kind of elastic ratchet straps. Is we have some of those at Flat for Off-Road. Obviously, I'm going to go grab some from there. And it's just going to go across that top little bracket there and hold this. So you could have a seat right here and just sit here and hang out if you're just working or something and you don't want the full bed. That said, I'll be interested. There is a little bit of room there. Should be able to put my winter sleeping bag in there, and then I don't know if I can get a full-size camp pillow, because the way this folds down, it's going to hit right here, and it's going to maybe give us a little bit of space, but I don't know how much. That's something we're going to just have to try on our trips. But other than that, like, maybe we can get the winter insulation kit. The winter insulation kit's nice and thin, so that would also be another thing that we would just have to try. But that is kind of the way this tent is folded up with all this insulation. So we are pretty much good to go. We just got to go ahead and fold up the tent. And just like that, we have our tent folded up and well, ready for the winter. We have added what I would consider about 7.5 R of insulation, which is plenty, especially since we have air underneath and we don't have a heat sink like the ground. When you're camping in the winter in backpacking tents, usually you lose a lot of heat through the ground. So this is going to be great for the winter, but you're just going to have to see how effective it is in our winter trips. We don't quite have snow yet here. We're still waiting for the temperature to drop below zero, but it's coming fast. So we will be winter camping. We will be testing this out. We actually got a couple more modifications to get this ready for some extreme winter camping that you're just going to have to see on the channel. And well, you can see it all folds up, so it's ready for some of our longer trips. Well, hopefully maybe through BC this winter and get a little bit of skiing. With that being said, let me know down below if you would ever do this to your tent, or maybe you're kind of a fair weather camper. And while you're down there, don't forget to go ahead and check out, well, the channel membership for some exclusive perks, because, well, there's some cool stuff happening behind the scenes. And, well, also Flat for Off-Road for getting your Subaru adventure ready, whether it is winter or summer. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next adventure.